Today is Wednesday, May 21st. We'll tell you what's included in a big budget bill, how President Trump is working to sell it, and why even some Republicans are holding out support. Also, we'll explain President Trump's plan to build a multi-billion-dollar Golden Dome. Plus, what to know about the government's new COVID vaccine policy, what vegetable is behind an outbreak making Americans sick, and why some of the NFL's biggest stars could soon play flag football. Those stories and even more news coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. President Trump made a visit to Capitol Hill yesterday to pressure GOP lawmakers to support what he's calling his big, beautiful bill. It's meant to help Trump's domestic policy agenda on many fronts. Like, it includes more money to help advance his immigration crackdown. It would also make his 2017 tax cuts permanent. New tax proposals are also included, such as a measure to get rid of taxes on tips and overtime pay. It also includes major reforms to Medicaid that could lead to millions of people losing coverage in the next decade. And it would tighten eligibility requirements for SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, while setting limits for federal student loans and getting rid of green programs. Oh, and it raises the debt limit by $4 trillion, just to name a few sticking points. Well, at a meeting with the House GOP conference yesterday, Trump reportedly told lawmakers he saw the bill as a test of loyalty to him, and that any holdouts, quote, wouldn't be a Republican much longer. But many Republicans came out of the meeting with Trump saying they're still not quite sold and want to see more changes. Several have expressed concern about the costs of the bill, since it's projected to add trillions of dollars to the deficit. Though Speaker Mike Johnson says he's confident the measure will be able to pass. So, to be continued. Once again, a judge is accusing the Trump administration of ignoring court orders as it aggressively cracks down on immigration. It came up during a chaotic last-minute hearing where immigrants' lawyers said their clients were put on a flight to South Sudan despite being from Southeast Asia or Mexico, and despite the State Department's warnings against traveling to South Sudan because of crime. The judge's earlier order specifically told the White House not to deport immigrants to countries where they aren't from and could face danger, without giving them enough time to challenge their removal. And now that judge says there may have been some criminal contempt. During the hearing, Trump administration officials said they couldn't reveal where the flight was or where it was going, but they did say at least some of the migrants on board were criminals. Either way, the judge said once the plane landed, the migrants needed to stay in the custody of the U.S. Homeland Security Department, at least until a hearing today to determine whether they were granted due process. Stay tuned. Like the Iron Dome in Israel, President Trump now has a plan for a Golden Dome missile defense shield in the U.S. The president announced yesterday he had selected a design, and he named a Space Force general to be in charge of the program. The plan is to create a network of satellites to detect, track, and potentially shoot down incoming missiles. Trump says it would cost about $175 billion, but the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates it could be more like $831 billion over 2 decades. And it's not clear where that money is coming from. Besides the money, there's a lot still up in the air. Axios reports planning, building, operating, and maintaining the Golden Dome will require intense coordination between the Pentagon, Congress, the White House, defense contractors, and troops. But President Trump says it's, quote, important for the success and even survival of our country. So he says the plan is to make the Golden Dome operational by the end of his term in 2029. Israel is facing some of the sharpest pushback yet from its allies since the war in Gaza started 19 months ago. Britain said yesterday it was suspending talks with Israel on expanding a free trade agreement. The day before, Britain, France, and Canada gave Israel a rare public reprimand, saying that unless Israel backed off its military escalation and stopped blocking aid, it would have to respond with concrete actions, including sanctions. In response, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the allies handed Hamas a huge prize and accused them of encouraging a repeat of the October 7th attacks on Israel that started the war. But Israel also allowed about 100 trucks carrying aid into Gaza yesterday, up from just 5 the day before. The United Nations says much more is needed, and the UN's humanitarian chief even said 14,000 babies could die in Gaza in the next 2 days without more aid. Though the UN did seem to back away from that claim later, while still saying life-saving supplies are needed ASAP. Israel has kept up its attacks while talks have hit another stalemate. As for the U.S., President Trump says he still supports Israel while also calling for an end to the war. The World Health Organization signed the world's first pandemic response treaty without the U.S. The measure has been debated for the past 3 years, and when it passed yesterday, applause echoed throughout the assembly. It lays out a framework for preventing pandemics in the first place by increasing animal surveillance, hoping to keep viruses from spilling over to humans. It also aims to respond more effectively once pandemics do come, for example, by offering healthcare workers protective equipment and aligning regulatory systems so more people get access to treatments. But the agreement's ultimate impact is not clear, especially without the U.S. The American delegation was not at yesterday's vote since President Trump withdrew the U.S. from the organization on his inauguration day. Trump has accused the WHO of mishandling the COVID pandemic and claimed it was subject to inappropriate political influence. But backers of the treaty say it shows what global cooperation can still accomplish. More news is still coming up, but first, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I love that so many more people are open about going to therapy these days and seem to care as much about being mentally healthy as they do about their physical health. But we also still have work to do. 26% of Americans who took part in a recent survey say they've avoided seeking mental health support due to fear of judgment. But I can speak from experience to say therapy is helpful and worth it and can go on to not only positively impact you, but also the people around you, your families, workplaces, and communities. I've learned how to navigate certain relationships better. I've learned about my own working style and how to improve it. I've gotten things off my chest so I can move on faster. Overall, I've gotten the support I needed to just be happier. So if you're interested, but not exactly sure how to get started, BetterHelp is an option that makes therapy convenient and affordable. We're all better with help. So visit betterhelp.com/newsworthy to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/newsworthy. Now back to the news. The new FDA has decided to limit access to seasonal COVID-19 shots. The agency now says before it approves them for healthy adults and children, it expects drug makers to do full studies first. Now, this is a change from the past, when drug makers were able to update their formulas to match the virus actually circulating based on simple tests to show they work. That is, after the original shots were already tested in rigorous trials, proving they're safe and effective. These new trials are typically considered unethical when a vaccine already exists because it involves withholding proven protection from one group while offering it to another, potentially exposing some trial participants to preventable illnesses. Manufacturers have also said they worry it could be tough to do the comprehensive studies in time to make shots available when a new strain starts circulating. But the new FDA defends this approach, saying it shows a, quote, commitment to gold standard science. Either way, the updated vaccines will continue to be approved as is for American seniors and other people considered high risk. And that includes a lot of Americans, including people who are obese or have mental health conditions like depression. Already, COVID vaccination rates have been dropping, with just 23% of American adults getting the latest booster. Cucumbers have now been linked to another salmonella outbreak that's made dozens of people sick in several states, including California, Illinois, New York, and Florida. The cucumbers were sold to stores, restaurants, and distribution centers starting last month and as recently as Monday. Some people who got sick ate the vegetables on cruise ships. The cucumbers are tied to Bedner growers. That's the same Florida grower whose tainted cucumbers were linked to hundreds of illnesses last year. This time, the FDA confirmed it through an environmental sample. The agency says anyone who ate the affected cucumbers and is now suffering with salmonella should contact a healthcare provider to report their symptoms. And if you can't tell whether your cucumbers were grown by Bedner growers or not, you should throw them out. It took 5 years of legal battles, but the popular game Fortnite is finally back on the Apple App Store. Remember, Apple had banned Fortnite from its store back in 2020, all because the game's parent company, Epic Games, updated Fortnite over the web to take payments directly instead of through Apple's in-app payment mechanism that takes a cut of up to 30%. Flash forward to last month, and a court ruling against Apple meant the tech giant had to host the game. So as of yesterday, Apple let Fortnite back on, though it's still appealing this latest order. Google held its big developer conference and product announcement event this week, and it will come as no surprise to find out the tech giant decided to go all in on AI. Google announced new artificial intelligence features coming to pretty much everything. For example, Google said it would make its AI mode broadly available in the US. That's a chat-like version of search. Google is also using AI to offer personalized smart replies to Gmail messages based off a user's email history. It debuted Flow, which is a new AI filmmaking tool, as well as Imagen 4, its latest image generator. Then, when it comes to coding, Google offered more details on its autonomous agent, Jules, that's now available in public beta. Microsoft and OpenAI have also announced new coding agents in recent days, and Anthropic is holding its first-ever developer conference tomorrow. NFL players might need to start brushing up on their flag football skills. The league's owners voted to let their stars compete in the event at the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics, where flag football is making its Olympic debut. But players will need to try out or qualify for the national teams when the time comes. Games will be 5-on-5 with no offensive or defensive lines. And instead of tackles, players will have to stop their competitors by pulling a flag off their waist. Flag football is actually one of a few new sports coming to the 2028 Olympics. The others are cricket, lacrosse, squash, baseball, and softball. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Work Wednesday, when we break down one interesting career or work-related news story every Wednesday. But first, I want to take a moment to talk about our sponsor, Skims. What are your wardrobe essentials? Especially this time of year when the weather can be a bit unpredictable or always changing. For me, I need both short and long sleeve tees that are great for layering and can be dressed up or down for every day or a weekend outing. And Skims always has my favorites. I have the Skims cotton jersey long sleeve tee, just to name one of them, and I love it. It's super soft and comfortable. Plus, other long sleeves tend to ride up or bunch at the waist, but this one stays put no matter what. And that's true to everything I've gotten from Skims so far. These tees are really flattering on. Skims just knows how to ensure the fabric and fit are just right every time. In fact, I'm still wearing all my other Skims tees, dresses, tanks, pants, the list goes on. So join me and shop Skims T-shirt shop at skims.com. After you place your order, be sure to let them know we sent you. You can select podcast in the survey and be sure to select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Okay, now back to Work Wednesday. In today's work environment, a lot of executives are focusing less on friendliness and more on talking tough. Many high-profile bosses are leaning on their employees to work harder, complain less, and be glad they still have jobs. For example, Starbucks CEO told corporate staff to step it up and, quote, own whether or not this place grows. JP Morgan CEO told employees he didn't care whether they approved of his return-to-office mandate. And Uber CEO said he was okay taking risks with unpopular changes. The Wall Street Journal says President Trump and his advisor Elon Musk have helped set the more aggressive tone as they've been working to slash the federal workforce. In fact, Trump said it himself, quote, everybody's replaceable. But Forbes also says a lot of it has to do with companies slashing their middle management, which has traditionally been a buffer between executives and frontline workers. AI is also playing a role, with more bosses realizing artificial intelligence could let them do more with a smaller staff. But one Stanford professor told the Journal it's temporary, saying, quote, when the market turns around, then CEOs will start to talk more about how important employees are, and employees will take advantage of it. Thank you so much for listening today. We'll be back tomorrow to keep you in the know with more news. Until then, have a great day.